How's it going, guys? So this is actually going to be a two-part tutorial video. This first part I'm going to cover strictly on probuilder and also on basically collision components. So the two things I'm going to be focusing on is how to create a frame for a door right here. And then the other thing I'm going to create is if you have a complex object like this and you have a mesh collider attached to it, you can use that. You might have to add more steps. The only downside of doing this, if you have a lot of polygonal mesh, is what's going to happen is Unity is going to have to calculate each one of these vertexes, or each one of these vertices, and each one of these edges. So if you have a real complex object, that can really come into lag, and so you might want to create something that actually overlaps it. So I'm going to get into that just in this tutorial. In the next part, I'm going to talk about how can you use the grav-null object to get these cubes to stick on top of these to create steps. So that will be in part 2. So I'm going to go and start with this. We will need the probuilder window up. I don't know why I just closed it. I'm going to just pop this up real quick. So this will represent our door right here. Because what we want to do is we actually want to move this kind of close to it. Don't want it super close. We'll edit that just a little bit. Make this just a little bit taller than the door, as you can see. Not too much. I'm going to hold down Shift, and then I'm going to drag. This will automatically extrude the object you're selected. So right now I have the face selected. You can also do this with Edge if you wish. So you can just hold down Shift and, okay, it doesn't work with edges. In Maya, it would actually just extrude this edge right here, but right now we're just trying to extrude the faces, so I'm going to hold down Shift. I'm going to drag this over. I'm going to hold down Shift again. I'm going to drag this down, or not down, but drag it a little further over. Then the last time I'm going to hold down Shift and drag this down. Yeah, I'm thinking right about there. Now, this is an okay looking door, but then you might want to be like, well, how do I pivot? And that's actually a fair question. I'm going to click on Edge. I'm going to select any one of these edges. It doesn't matter which one I select, but if I want it to pivot, like hinge right here, then I'm going to select this edge. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to click on Set Pivot. And is what this will allow me to do is when I go into my component, I'll come up here where it says Center, and I'll click on that and change it to Pivot. So now the pivot will be right there on the edge that we just selected. As you can see, it now opens. Now you might notice right here, it's actually like overlapping. So to fix that is what you can do is you can come over here. You can also just make this thinner. That's actually completely up to you. I'm going to select this. Let me select the edge. There we go. I'm going to select this edge. I'm just going to bring this over just a little bit. Maybe just a little bit more. Something kind of like that. I'm just going to bring this back right about here. There we go. I'm going to click on Face, and I'm actually going to click on all, well, not that one. I'm just going to click on these faces. I'm going to bring these out just a little bit. Then I'll select this edge and bring this out some. And this one, I'm actually wanting to click on the vertice and bring this forward just a little bit. And now I think that vertice can stay. And so now just to clean this up is what I'm going to do is extrude this over. Probably right about there, I think. And I'm just going to go all the way across. So I'm going to move this one right about here. I'm going to click on Edge down here. I'm going to bring this forward like so. Oops, wrong one. So I can click on this edge. I can bring this back. I'm going to try and make this uniform all the way down. I'm not going to spend too much time with this just so we can continue on with the tutorial, but this should give you a pretty good idea. So now that we have that, we can come back here and click on this. And so now when we rotate this, as you can see, it no longer intersects those objects. It actually goes across it smoothly. And there's other ways you can do this. There are several ways you can do this. Another example of this would be if you don't like this, ultimately is what you can do is you can bring a simple cube object again, and you can just start with it as a thinner object and then extrude from there. So by doing this, well, it'll still be the same thickness as the door if you're wondering, but by having a thinner object, let me go ahead and extrude this real quick. The advantage that this gives you is that when you extrude it, you can extrude it at 3 different points. And the advantage, oh look at that, I didn't have all the faces selected. Yay. So the advantage of that is you can actually come in here. Let me just intersect this. Oops. You can actually move this in. So now this is more uniform, and on top of that, whenever we open it, it still doesn't intersect because, well, it intersects a little bit back here. But for the most part, you can just come in here and tweak this a little bit more, and as you can see, it actually has a uniform pattern that it is following. And so that's all you'd have to do is just drag this like so. And as you can see, it actually follows everything, and it doesn't intersect at all. And overall, it still looks real uniform. So that's how you can do that. So for steps like this, if you have like certain steps in mind, like you want large steps, but your character's not walking up them, that's going to be a problem because you don't want the player to have to jump on every single step. Ultimately, if you have a bunch of steps, then that's not going to be as optimized as what it should be. So an easy way around that, I'm just going to move this window off to the side. I'm actually going to remove the component on the mesh collider, so the player character will walk right through these stairs. Now right now you're probably like, but Jimmy, how is a player going to go through there? Well, let me get to that. So right here I have a cube. It's a beautiful cube, but nevertheless it is a cube. I'm actually going to make this about the size of these steps. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you do want it to be close. Now, normally when dealing with probuilder, I would strictly tell you never scale these. I mean, absolutely never scale them. And the only reason why I am scaling this object is because this object will not be rendered. There we go. And see, this object has a mesh collider, so it's actually looking at each one of these vertices. So once we have this in place, we're going to move this front down right about there. And we're actually going to remove the, go figure, we're actually just going to turn the mesh renderer off. So now we have this. Now this is going to look a little weird whenever your player tries to traverse it, and actually we need to bring this down just a little bit. And we may actually want to come in here. That's not what I wanted. Let's see. Here it is. I'm going to extend this out just a little bit further to move this down. There we go. I'm going to select face. And I cannot, so that is fine. I'll just select the vertices. We got this. There we go. Now it's going to look a little weird when your character walks across this, but this is far more optimized than just a normal, using steps where it's having to calculate each one of these. In fact, let me go ahead and play the game real quick, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. Let me go ahead and enlarge this window so you can see it, and I'll go straight over to here. So this is the steps that you would have. Now the only issue with this is you'll see that your player is sliding down these steps. That is the only issue you're going to have with doing this. There are a few options you can do past that. Normally under your character controller, you would basically change, like, I believe it's going to be I believe it's the drag. But generally, if your character is just walking across them, you're not really going to notice a whole lot. The other thing you'll notice right off, just immediately, is that his feet actually intersect. Now, this is more optimized, and you can still do a similar trick to this, but this would be the best way to do it if you have large steps like this, or you have a bunch of steps where you have to create a collision object, and you don't want your character to get stuck on the stairs. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here, and in the next lesson I'm actually going to show two ways of doing this. One way would be whenever you snap an object here, it'll actually enable the next snappable object above it. So I'm actually going to talk strictly about that, on how you can create steps like this, and I'll see you in the next video.